Saying no could get you killed. Not metaphorically, not as some dramatic exaggeration for a video hook. In the world before agriculture, before cities, before the idea of simply walking away and never seeing someone again, rejection ran in both directions, and both directions carried real, physical risk. Today we treat heartbreak like a bad week, something to sleep off with, a sad playlist, and a few days of silence. A researcher named Ashley Kelly, working out of the University of Queensland in 2016, pulled together decades of scattered evidence and found something uncomfortable. Rejecting a mate, or being rejected by one, correlates across cultures with verbal abuse, financial abuse, physical violence, and in the worst cases, homicide. Turning someone down wasn't a text message you could send and forget about by morning. It was a live wire, and both people holding it knew it. Picture a band of 30 people, 25, maybe 40 on a good year. That's roughly the group size most of our ancestors lived inside for something like 200,000 years. There was no other town 3 miles over where you could start fresh after an awkward breakup, no apartment across the city to disappear into. The person you rejected slept 20 feet from your fire. You'd see their face every single day, for years, possibly for the rest of your life. Under that kind of pressure, a wrong move wasn't embarrassing. It was dangerous, for the person doing the rejecting as much as the person being rejected. And it rarely stayed between two people. Choosing or refusing, a mate in a band that small pulled in parents, siblings, and whoever held influence over food and alliances that season. Researchers studying this kind of evolutionary mismatch point out that people today make mating decisions with a kind of independence our ancestors never had, often without parents or kin weighing in at all. That independence feels like freedom now. Back then, a single rejection wasn't just a private wound. It could shift who shared meat with your family next winter, who backed you in a dispute, who let your children play near their fire. So people adapted. Kelly's research describes something researchers call avoidant withdrawal, quietly disengaging, going cold, letting a connection die by inches instead of announcing the end outright. It shows up in modern relationships too, especially among people who fear a partner might turn violent if told the truth directly and to their face. What looks like cowardice from the outside might actually be a strategy passed down from ancestors who learned the hard way, which approaches got people hurt and which ones let both sides walk away in one piece. Being direct wasn't always safer. Sometimes it was the opposite. But that's not the darkest part of this story. Not even close. Because if rejecting one person could get you hurt, rejecting the entire group could get you dead. Long before a failed relationship, ancestral bands managed misbehavior through smaller tools. First, teasing, gossip, public ridicule aimed at anyone who got too greedy or too proud. These were the warning shots. Anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer societies described the next step up, prolonged ostracism, as something close to a death sentence. Researchers Eric Wesselman, James Nairne, and Kipling Williams, writing in 2012, called it social death, a state where the group simply stops treating you as a person worth feeding, warning, or protecting. No trial, no official punishment, just silence and then absence. That absence was lethal. A lone forager without a group had no one to watch for predators while they slept, no one to share meat during a bad hunting season, no one to help carry an injured body back to camp after a fall or a fight with an animal twice their size. Cooperation wasn't a nice bonus in these societies. It was the entire operating system. Remove a person from it, and their odds of seeing another winter dropped fast. This is the part most documentaries skip. Exclusion in early human groups didn't always stay passive. Primatologist Christopher Baim has documented something disturbing in our closest living relatives. Since 1992, close to a dozen reported cases of chimpanzees being attacked by their entire group at once have surfaced across Africa. In 7 of 14 documented cases, the targeted individual fled into temporary exile. 6 of those 7 are known to have died afterward. Coordinated, collective violence against a single group member, something eerily close to the group executions recorded later in written human history, appears to predate our own species entirely. We didn't invent this response. We inherited it. which means the fear humming under your ribs right now, the one that spikes when you're left on red, when you're the last one picked for a team, when a group chat goes quiet the moment you speak up, might not be a personality flaw. It might be a few million years old, older than the ability to name what it's called, older than words themselves. Here's what your body is actually doing with that feeling. In 2003, a UCLA researcher named Naomi Eisenberger put volunteers into an fMRI scanner and had them play a simple computer game called Cyberball, 3 players tossing a virtual ball back and forth. 2 of those players were controlled by a program, and partway through, they stopped throwing to the human volunteer entirely. Nothing physical happened, no one touched them, no one raised their voice. Their brains lit up in the exact same region that activates during physical pain. The dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the same circuitry that fires when you burn your hand or twist an ankle on a curb, fired just as hard from being ignored in a make-believe ballgame with no stakes at all. Eisenberger's conclusion, later expanded across dozens of follow-up studies, was blunt. The human brain does not clearly separate a broken bone from a broken connection. Both get filed under the same heading, threat. Later, researchers even found the 2 systems argue with each other. One study reported that feeling excluded made people more sensitive to physical pain afterward, while a separate lab found the opposite. That exclusion could numb pain sensitivity instead. Even scientists studying this haven't fully agreed on the mechanics. Some argue the effect isn't purely about rejection at all, but about surprise, the shock of an expectation being broken, rather than the social wound itself. What almost everyone agrees on is the overlap itself, and that alone should unsettle you a little. Evolutionary biologists argue this isn't a flaw in the system, it's the system working exactly as designed. A brain that couldn't tell the difference between social danger and physical danger was a brain built for a species that needed the group to survive at all. The sting you feel from a slow reply, an uninvited party, a partner who stopped calling, exists because somewhere back along the line, an ancestor who felt nothing when the group pulled away didn't notice they were dying until it was already too late to fix it. So the fear is old. Older than agriculture, older than language, for all we know, possibly older than our own species. But here's the part that gets buried under all that darkness. Humans didn't just build machinery for exclusion, they built machinery for coming back. Among the Southern Cheyenne, one documented case involved a man beaten and abandoned by his own band after repeated disrespect and horse theft, the kind of behavior that, by every rule above, should have ended with him dead out on the plains, alone and unwelcome anywhere. Instead, he crossed paths with a Northern Cheyenne band. He confessed what he'd done. He promised to change. He was accepted and eventually rose to join their soldier society, one of the most respected roles a warrior could hold in that world. That's not a footnote. That's the other half of the story nobody tells alongside the horror. Human groups built exile because cooperation was worth protecting at nearly any cost. But they also built a path home, because somewhere inside that same fierce need for connection, they understood something we still relearn every generation. People can be wrong, can be forgiven, and can be let back in. None of this required forgiveness on demand, and none of it erased what came before. The Cheyenne man still carried the shame of what he'd done. The band that took him back still remembered the theft, likely for the rest of his life among them. Reintegration wasn't a reset button. It was a second chance, earned through confession and years of proving himself afterward, offered by people who understood exactly how close he'd come to dying alone on open ground, with no fire waiting for him anywhere. The pain of rejection you carry today isn't proof that something is broken in you. It's proof of exactly how much your ancestors needed each other to survive at all, and how hard they worked, even then, surrounded by real danger on every side, to find a way back to one another when everything in them screamed to walk away instead.